Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head up towards Stockholm once again, so we're sticking to Sweden. We're going a little bit out to the west to the small town of Strängnäs, and this is going to be my first ever review from the Mälardalen Brewing Company, and this is a beer that was released, or re-released I guess you could say, on the 1st or 2nd of January 2019 through Systembolaget. So for this one we're going to have a taste of their Mental IPA, and it comes in at 6.2%. I will be honest with you and tell you that I just ordered this beer simply because of the name, because in Sweden they often call people crazy, like galna, galen and things like that, but I'd never actually, the mental is quite a Scottish word, and that's what really attracted me to it. And then when I was doing the research on this brewery I found out that it was partly owned by an Irishman, and of course the thing that the Irish and Scots have in common, apart from being, sharing the Celtic blood, is genetic insanity, so this is kind of quite cool. But yeah, this is an IPA coming in at 6.2%, and I'm very curious to see how this one turns out. I always enjoy introducing you guys to the new smaller Swedish craft brews, although these guys have been around for a couple of years yet. But I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer, and as always I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. So anyway, as is usual, I'll take you through a little bit of a brewery history. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Mälardalen Brewing Company. I do have a bottle of the radio to review for you, and you'll see that in a few videos time. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about the Mälardalen Brewing Company then. So as I mentioned to you earlier, the Mälardalen Brewing Company are based in Strängnäs, out to the west of Stockholm, and they were founded by Jens Schempe, who is Swedish, and Kieran Blake, who is Irish, back in 2015. But both have backgrounds in the pharmaceutical industry, and they were colleagues at Pfizer, and they started brewing together before deciding to kind of expand on that hobby and formally start a business. Apparently Kieran, came out to Sweden back in around 2010, I think it was. He met a Swedish woman and decided to stay here, which is of course the case for a lot of foreign guys that do come to Sweden. The Swedish women seem to have something about them apparently. But they started off brewing with a 1,000 litre system, and they've also developed a very interesting brewing technique as well, which uses bags inside the tanks, and this means that they can save a lot of water, and it means they don't have to use cleaning agents as well, which is obviously a big benefit to the environment. And apparently this is an idea that they've patented, so it'd be very interesting to see how that goes forward. I think when I was reading that article that I read about that was actually from 2017, so it'd be interesting to hear how that kind of patenting thing goes. But they also have a brewery pub as well, and they run a membership scheme that is quite similar to what Eskilstuna Ölkultur do as well, which is kind of, it's almost like crowdfunding. People can invest in the brewery a little bit, and they can get things like brewery tours and brew their own beers and things like that. They seem to have a scheme that is really quite similar to that. But Eskilstuna of course isn't too far away from Strängnäs, so it probably is quite likely that that model is maybe based on what the guys at Eskilstuna have done. But yeah, really cool to come across another little Swedish brewery that I hadn't heard of. If you want to learn a little bit more about them, you can check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram and things like that, and that will keep you up to date with all the latest goings on. But that's all the information I was able to find on these guys. But from what I gather, this one, the Mental IPA, and also the Phoenix Radio have just been re-released through Systembolaget, and as I mentioned, they came out I think on the 1st or 2nd of January 2019. So yeah, let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer itself then. So like I mentioned at the start, this one is a 6.2% IPA. It tells you a little bit about the beer and things on the side. It just said they wanted to brew something that was to modern tastes, and it tells you a little bit about how they started up the brewery as well. So there you can see the Mälardalen Brewing Company symbol there, which is quite nice. Just a plain gold bottle cap on this one, and there you can see the nice kind of artwork there. This one, it's almost like one of these kind of typical tattoos that a lot of people will get these days, the kind of skull and roses actually. It's kind of similar to that, but nicely presented bottle this one. I do like this, and from what I gather they've kind of redesigned their artwork quite recently as well. But this one comes in at 6.2%, and it recommends that you serve it between 7 and 10 degrees. And I think at the moment it will be, you know, 6, 7, 8 degrees. This one, I've had it out of the fridge for about half an hour or so, just to let it warm up a little bit. But yeah, nice looking beer, this one, at best before the 29th of April 2019, so I'm guessing it was bottled around the very end of November, so it still should be in pretty good shape. So without further ado then, let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting. Very curious to see how this turns out. So as you could see, nice little bit of smoke on the opening, and we'll get it out and into the glass. And when you open this one up, you can smell a little bit of that nice juicy fruity note coming out of it. I think it's a little bit of orange that's coming out of this one. And going by the appearance of this beer, I'm guessing that in terms of an IPA, I think this one will be a little bit closer to a West Coast IPA rather than a New England. But yeah, looking at this one, you can see there's a solid finger of a frothy, I would say kind of creamy beige head on this one, but you know, it looks very nice. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head. I would say this one, it's almost a little bit like a kind of rich blood orange sort of colour. I think it's a kind of rich blood orange amber colour there. If I put my fingers behind the glass, you can see there is a degree of transparency to this one, but at the same time it does have a little hint of that haziness. But as I say, more akin to a West Coast IPA in terms of its appearance, rather than one of these New England haze for days sort of things that seem to be all the rage at the moment. But yeah, nice looking beer, this one. Let's take a closer look at the aroma and see how we go on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance with this one. Oh yeah, I think again in terms of the aroma, this is definitely a West Coast IPA. So yeah, the malt base of this one's a little bit interesting. It's almost a little bit like, it's got a good little bit of a biscuity sweetness to it. There's definitely some caramelly notes coming out of this one as well, and it's got a little bit of a toasty note, but definitely a little bit of this kind of McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of thing coming out of this glass, out of this beer, sorry. But yeah, the malt base is really nice. Nice little bit of sweet breadiness, nice little bit of biscuity quality in there, a little bit of a sweet caramel, kind of the typical sort of things that you would expect from a West Coast IPA. On top of that, you've got some nice juicy fruity qualities. It's got a good bit of an oily orange. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Amarillo in this one, to be honest, because the orangey quality that's coming out of this one is a little bit just more oily. The other orange hops, of course, you've got Azaka, which is a bit of a sharper mandarin. You've got Mosaic, which is a little bit more of a juicy kind of tangerine thing. Pacifica from New Zealand is quite a big orange one, and you've also got Mandarin and Bavaria as well from Germany. But I'm pretty sure, I think this one is probably Amarillo that's in here. I always like playing guess the hops with these IPAs when you don't know what's in them. But yeah, there is a little touch of a tropical fruit in there. You know, it's along the lines of a, I would say, maybe it's a sort of, it's quite smooth, it's almost like a papaya apricot thing, maybe slightly mango, somewhere along those kind of lines. There is just a little bit of a light tropical note underneath that, but mainly the fruity notes in this beer are orange, I would say. And on the sort of floral, grassy side of the beer, I would say a little bit of a kind of floral note to this one. There's a little bit of an almost noble earthiness coming out of the hops as well. So, you know, maybe it could be a little bit of Mandarin and Bavaria in here. Either that or they've used some German noble hops in the bittering side of things. But yeah, definitely a nice little bit of floral and grassy quality from this one. Leaning more towards the grassy side of things. Little touch of earthiness, like I said. And the fruits, mainly orange, but as I say, there's a little bit of a kind of papaya sort of, you know, papaya, maybe a little touch of mango or apricot or something like that in this one, but mainly a nice juicy orange quality to the beer. But as I always say, take a little bit of time and enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in, but we'll have a taste of this one now. So this one is the Mental IPA, coming in at 6.2% from the Mälardalen Brewery, basically the Mälar Valley Brewery if you want to do that. The Mälar Valley, of course, is the region that, you know, where the lake is just out to the west of Stockholm. The Mälar Valley, Dalen of course in Swedish is valley, but from the Mälardalen Brewing Company in Strängnäs, just to the west of Stockholm here in Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Oh yeah. Yeah, this one, It's quite nice. It's one of these beers it's not going to blow the head off you, let's kind of say that. It's not one of these West Coast IPAs that absolutely blow the head off you in terms of bitterness. You know, this one, it's one of these ones that has a good little bit of flavour to it, but it's quite sessionable at the same time. It's almost one of these kind of restaurant-y craft beers. I think that's a good way to describe this one. But what it's achieving is quite nice. It's nice and sessionable, and the first thing that struck me about this one is it's the mouthfeel. It's got a nice blend of a kind of wet, oily mouthfeel to it. This is a very kind of drinkable and quite refreshing IPA, this one. But as I say, by no means is this going to blow the head off you in terms of IBUs. But yeah, it's a nice beer, this one. A nice, easy drinker, I would say. That's my first impression of it. Yeah. It's one of the it's really just nice how everything goes together. By all means, this beer is one of these ones where it's all about how the flavours kind of blend together. So as I say, this one, it really is striking me as more of one of these restaurant-y kind of food pairing beers, this one. And if you know, I think it's intended as that, but it comes across really nicely. It's meant to be a very kind of sessionable beer. And one of the things I was reading in the article was that Kieran, he said that in Strängnäs there wasn't really any place that they could drink good beer, and they wanted to have a place in the town where they could actually go and drink these good beers. And you know, part of that obviously is going to be to create a nice kind of sessionable, you know, some nice sessionable beers where people can go and actually have a few of these things. And that, I think, is what the aim of this beer probably is. But it's got a nice blend of flavours, this one. So if you like a nice sessionable but quite flavourful IPA, then this is one that I think you are going to quite enjoy. So yeah, with this beer then, the malt base, it's actually, this beer in fairness is quite similar to what you would expect from the Aroma. So in the middle of your palate then you get a nice little bit of, it's got this nice sort of bready malt base to it, but that becomes a little bit more grainy and biscuity the further into the aftertaste you go. In the very centre of your palate you've got a little bit of a slightly sweet caramel in there too. It's almost got a little touch of a toasty quality to it, which is quite interesting. But yeah, the beer itself is just very, very nice and very sessionable. It's not doing anything overly surprising with this style. It's just one of these ones, as I say, that's nice and quite sessionable. But yeah, the malt base, a little bit of bready quality in there. On top of that, the further into the aftertaste you go, it's got a little bit of this kind of McVitie's digestive, biscuity sort of vibe to it. And in the centre of your palate, you've got a little touch of a more caramelly sweetness with a little bit of a toasty quality. There's almost a little bit, with this beer, it's almost got a little bit of a kind of Werther's Original sort of, not quite butterscotch, but somewhere along those lines. It's got a little bit of that kind of buttery quality to it in the malt base as well, which is quite nice. On the hoppy side of things, back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness there. I do wonder if they've used a little bit of German hop in this one, just because of the way the earthiness that comes out of this one is almost a little bit sweet, but at the same time it has a little touch of an almost English character to it as well. As I always say, the German earthiness tends to be a little bit sweeter from the Hallertau and the Tittnanger, and also the Czech Sats as well, but the English earthiness is almost a little bit darker, and it has, the English hops have a little bit more of a herbal quality. But this one, I think there's a little touch of Englishness to it, but mainly a kind of German quality. But as you come further forward along the sides of your palate, the earthiness just smooths out a little bit. As you get towards the front corners of the palate, that's where some of the kind of floral grassiness is coming out of the beer. And then round the very front curve of the tongue, it is just a little bit more light and grassy, I would say. And behind the front curve of the palate, you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters start to come out of the beer. So yeah, for me, on the fruity side of things, again, this one, it's quite orangey, I would say, and the orange becomes a little bit more pronounced the further into the aftertaste that you go. There's something that makes me want to say there might be a little bit of Mandarina Bavaria in this one, just because of the way the hops are coming out. Either that, or it's one of the noble hops is being used as the bittering hop, and it's got a little bit of Amarillo in it as well. I wouldn't be surprised if there's Amarillo in it too, because this beer to me is quite oily and orangey in its fruity quality. As I was picking up in the aroma, there is a little touch of a kind of tropically fruit, you know, like a sort of papaya, apricot-y sort of thing to this one as well, and that comes out just a little bit more towards the front tips of the palate the further into the aftertaste you go. But the fruity side of this one again is very, you know, it's very orangey. I think I would definitely stick with that analysis of this beer. It's quite a nice orangey sessionable IPA, this one, and as I've always said, if you watched the channel before, you will know that I do enjoy these big orangey IPAs. So it's very cool to kind of come across this one. But this is just a nice, light, kind of easy drinking IPA, this one. If you like the Amarillo hop or the Mandarina Bavaria hop, particularly the orangey IPAs, then I wouldn't be surprised if you enjoy this one. But it's definitely one of the ones where it's all about how these nice flavours just kind of combine together. So bear that in mind when you have a go at this beer. It's a nice, easy drink and kind of food pairing beer, this one. It's not one of these IPAs that really is going to blow the head off you. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel of this one then, it's definitely mid-bodied. The carbonation's quite smooth on this one. It's got a good oily texture to it, but at the same time it has a little bit of wetness, which gives it some of that kind of refreshing quality. In terms of IBUs, I think this one's somewhere maybe around the 50-ish mark. Yeah, I would say somewhere between the 40 and 50-ish mark in terms of its IBUs, balanced out with a nice kind of sweetness from the malt base, although the malt base does have a little bit of that bready smoothness in there as well, and the further into the aftertaste you go, you start to get more and more of these nice juicy fruity qualities in there, and the oily character that this beer has really helps to bring out some of those juicy fruity notes as well. But yeah, really enjoyable beer, this one. And definitely a sort of good food pairing one, I would say. So yeah, if you get the chance to try this one, definitely have a go at it. I think I only paid, you know, like £30 or something like that for this beer. So to try this one for £30, I think is pretty good value as well. But yeah, an interesting beer, this one. And as I always say, I do like introducing you guys to these new sort of Swedish breweries that you might not have heard of. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one's the Mental IPA. You know, maybe not quite as mental as the name might suggest, but definitely a nice kind of easy-going beer, this one, coming in at 6.2%, a lovely kind of orangey IPA, this. So if you like the Amarillo hop, if you like Mandarina Bavaria, I think this is the sort of beer that you're going to enjoy. But once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from the Mälardalen Brewing Company as well, and I will be returning to these guys in the next couple of videos for a look at their red ale. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out my social media and have a go at some of these beers if you get the chance. This is the Mental IPA from the Mälardalen Brewing in Strängnäs, just out to the west of Stockholm. Slange, skål.